Alright, welcome to our tutorial on creating a Flash picture menu. I wanted to show you what the final menu actually ends up looking like, and then we'll talk about how we got there. So this is based off of a menu available online through YouTube, but we wanted to customize it to our project needs and kind of make it more personal as opposed to just kind of static. So I'm going to just show you what the final project looks like. So if I go test my movie in a Flash professional viewer, it's going to open the SWF. This is my final window. You see, when I stretch it, it will stretch to the size of whatever I want. Now, what it is I've customized the background to be black. I've made my buttons gray so it contrasts. I found the Chicago Bulls color. This is actually a wallpaper with Rose in the image, but you can't see him. He's just going to give me my static. And then I wanted it to be filtered to kind of what the ad's about. So this is about Adidas campaign, the Bulls, and Rose. So if I click through it, it actually is going to be all the different options. So ideally, this is the step one, and after this, we'll be able to actually link each of these to a new scene where you'll be taken to a new page. So this is just kind of the preview to set you up. The next tutorial will show you how to link the internal videos. But you can see it'll just keep linking around, and I can go either way. It looks like a very clean, sharp menu gallery done in Flash. That's where you get the dynamic website versus Dreamweaver, which is the static. So how did I make this? A couple things to note. In my layer panel, I have 4 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to hide them so you can kind of see what each of them is all about. As you can see, I have a black background, but I do not have a layer for it. All that was done is if you go to your properties panel on the right-hand side, you can choose whatever color you want the stage to be. It can be any color under the sun. If you open the spinning wheel, then you'll have all the options to choose from. So if I wanted to go with more of the Chicago Bulls color, I could do that. And automatically it would change for my whole project. To me, I like the black. It's a little more chic. So at any time I can kind of change the black or any color I'd like. You can also choose to have a picture, but then it would be a layer. So as soon as you change out of the basic color, you have to have a layer for your background. The menu size. When you move the arrow, it will change the menu size. It is up to you what size you would like your menu to be. It will be able to be customized up to any degree, but note that whenever you move it, you'll have to reset everything. So there's no ending point to when you can customize it, but you'll have to repeat all the steps to each layer that you do have. The 24 frames per second doesn't really apply to us because we're action scripting it to be moving based on our clicks versus actually moving through time. So that doesn't matter so much. So this was done by going to File, New, ActionScript 3.0, and then it gives you this basic template. So again, here's your stage, here's your size, here are your layers. Again, you need to make 4 layers, so click it 4 times. And you're going to call them frame, images, buttons, actions. In my library, I have lots of images, as you can see. I didn't know what images I was going to use, so I imported more than I could mean. All of these images were customized to scale once brought into Flash, so don't worry about the size. Do note that if they are CMYK pictures, you will not see them. They must be RGB to be seen. So if you ever wonder why you're getting a little error when you bring them in, you'll have to change that in Photoshop. Most likely because you're finding them on the internet and it is an RGB platform, you won't run into this problem. But if you customize, for example, this border and make it in Photoshop, it will default to CMYK and you will have to change it to RGB. So on my layers here, I have my frame, which represents my background, my images, my buttons, and my actions. And all I did, if I go here, is on layer 1, I have my frame. On layer 2, I have my images. On layer 3, I have my my buttons. And on my top layer, I have my actions. Now, remember, my actions are at the top. It doesn't really get seen on the stage because there's no element for it. My frame is at the bottom because it's going to go behind the pictures. If the frame was on top, for example, if I move this up, it messes up the whole scene because it needs to be below the images in order for it to be hiding and used as a border. So whatever image you decide to use as the frame, just grab it from your library and drag it in. Now, I'm just going to re-import those all so I can walk those steps with you. To import all your stuff to your library, File, Import to Library. And these are all my pictures. I save everything to the same folder and you will never run into problems. So I called it Bulls Menu and I saved it all to the same file. So now I have all my pictures. So I can go through. I know I want this to be my background. This is where your resizing happens. When you drag it in, it's freaking huge. My scene is only going to be actually that little box, and this picture is obviously way too big for it. So if I click the Properties tab, this is where you're going to say, I really only want my picture to be, 400 by 280. Now you need to make sure that you keep the proportions. You do not want, you could say go by 500, but it looks stupid, to be 100% honest. So make sure you're keeping the proportion of the image that you want. The thing to note is that your frame needs to be there for all 4 slides. So insert a keyframe at 4 and it will be there for the whole length. You can move it at any time, but just know that because it's a new keyframe at 4, that you'll have to make sure you move both of those. So if you're here, you can see on the Properties panel where it rests, 81.85. So let's just say you want this to be 82 by 60. Then you could just go to the next frame, 82 by 60. Okay, so you just need to make sure that it ends up being the same. So if you do change it after, note that you have to change both. Okay. Images, same deal. Library, drag in your picture. Resize your picture by going to Properties, shrinking it. You can either choose to drag or you can choose to type in the numbers. It's up to you 100%. If you want to kind of see where you're at, you can more than welcome to just drag it. Unfortunately, you can't just grab the corners so much. It doesn't really work that way. So you could use that to do free transform, but it doesn't necessarily always work to 100%. So it kind of scales kind of like that versus side by side. So that's why I recommend just actually going in here and saying I want it to be 400 by 260. Does that work? No, I need my side to be smaller, so 380, right? And then you can center your pictures. And once you have those numbers, write those numbers down so that they all align. Again, whatever numbers you choose. And you'll repeat the steps to insert your new image, new image, new image, new image. Okay. On the buttons layer, you need to insert a button. So you're going to insert both buttons on the same first frame, and then just again on frame 4, insert a new keyframe. As you can see here, I have my 4 images on each frame, but I just have done it on the first one. I can select it and you see both buttons are put up. How the buttons were done is I used the lovely T tool. So I made sure that button frame was selected, grabbed the T tool, made a big text box, said, you know what, that's good size. Web dings gives me a previous arrow if I hit the number 3, so web dings 3, and then you get your arrow. If I want a different color, you just simply go to your color box and you can change the color of your arrow. 100% customizable to whatever you're looking to do. I can grab the eyedropper, select the gray out from my border so it's the consistent right color gray as well. Okay. Same deal. I have not selected a new layer. I'm still working on the same layer, so still make sure you're on buttons, frame 1. And I'm going to make another text box. Whoop, and I'm going to make this one the 4 and make sure it's aligned. You'll notice that when you're moving stuff around, it tells you when you've aligned. So when your height's aligned, and then you can just work with the going in with the arrow key to kind of make it align the other way. Okay, as you can see, this obviously is not centered. I spent a little more time on this one, so just make sure that you work with the numbers till it's all centered. When you have your buttons put in, you are not done. You must insert a keyframe so that they are there for all 4 slides. The next thing you must do, actually undo. I lied. I stepped too forward. Before you do that, make them buttons. So right now they're just text boxes. They're not buttons. So you're going to right click it and convert it to a symbol. I call it BTTN, not with capital X, BTTN1. And as soon as you've done that, your properties panel will change to reflect that this is now a button, and just keep the name in there to match it so that they're similar with having both ones. So again, next thing, right click, convert to symbol, BTTN2, okay, and then back to my instance name, BTTN2, so it's cohesive. Again, you have to note if you're using uppercase or lowercase, it will make a huge difference when you're doing your project. You're almost done. You've put your frames in, you've inserted your 4 pictures, you've sized everything the way you want it to go. The next thing you need to do is your actions. What you do is you select that empty frame at the very top and you go to Window, Actions. It will open an action coding menu. The great thing about actions is if I put an action in, it will tell me if it's right or wrong. Okay? If you get this noise, that is bad noise. And if I move my thing, it will tell you, oh, that's nice. It actually is wrong, but it's not telling you. We'll explain this a little bit more when I go back to this one. I'm sorry, there's no pause button, so I can't undo that. I'm going to go back to this movie right here, the first one. And you can see on my actions, I'm just going to open up for you, window actions. Everywhere that things are supposed to be action, they represent a color. Okay, so the black coding represents what you want to do. So I'm referring to button 1 and 2. I want it to go backwards and forwards. I'm referring to frame 1, when I want it to start or where I want it to end. The blue font represents what the heck is going on. Stop. Add an event. I want it on the mouse click, it clicks. Okay? At this frame, this total frame. Go to and stop. Next frame. So the blue represents an action. The purple font represents the math in the coding. So if you are taking computer science, you kind of have an advantage here. Functions, very familiar to a word in math, right? Functions. In this case, what is going to happen if something happens or else something happens? So functions are how all electronic devices, like when you go to the bank machine, are scripted. If this person clicks checkings, take them to this page. This is exactly what's happening right here. So if I'm at the current frame, I am at the end frame, I need to go to and stop at 1 so that it could repeat through. So it's not going to end at 4. Same deal, if I've made it all the way to the beginning, go to the previous frame, loop around. Okay, so you have to create the action. It doesn't know which way to go until you tell it. So to start, you're referring to which 2 buttons you're talking about. What's happening? You've got button 1's the backwards. You have your coding for what happens when it's backwards. Your button 2 is forward. You have your coding for what happens when it's forward. I'm just going to leave that open so you can kind of see. You can pause here and kind of copy the coding for it. Now, if it doesn't work, if you don't have black here or you don't have blue here, it's possible that you didn't capitalize the right letters. Event listener, E and L are capitalized. They must remain capitalized. If it keeps looping and going looping and looping, I'll show you how that would look. So if my coding doesn't have proper spacing, what will happen is if I go to actually test my movie, this is going to happen. It's going to, well, it did before, it's going to loop, loop, and loop through. I'm glad it's fixed itself now. In the compile errors, if it's doing something wrong, it's going to tell you. So originally when I coded it, I did run into a problem. It told me in my errors that there was a problem in actions line 3 and 4. So I was able to go to my timelines and open up my actions, and I was able to find out, window actions, that it was just missing a space. For some reason, it doesn't matter right now, but it did matter for me about 20 minutes ago. So when you do run into an error, if you do, just go to your compile errors. It will tell you exactly what's going on and why it's being silly. If you're trying to do more, you're more than welcome to cheat and go to your code snippets. And there's codes for everything you'd want to do. If you click on something, you can actually see the coding, what it does, and then it will show you the code right there, and you can actually just insert it in. So it's an easy way to code, available in ActionScript 3.0. Again, so your final video will look like this. You'll go to test movie, you'll have your 4 video frames, you'll be able to navigate through. The next tutorial video will be about clicking, so that when I click on my Adidas shoes, I'm taken to my Adidas shoe page. Also think about where this is going to look. Is this going to be the home instance where I have to keep coming back to the scene? Or will this be an element on my website that's always visible and it will just change the other elements around it? Those are important considerations when we go to link it, because there'll be 2 different types of coding. I hope this video helps, and I'll talk to you in the next video.